pretty much, of course, like our salaries went to it. One thing we did was wedding money, gifts we got from our wedding. We put to debt, which probably a lot of people spend.
Very good idea.
That's a good one.
Put
Yeah.
that to debt. Not all of it, but what I do with any extra money is, I still do this now. I just allocate percentages before I know the amount, because what I find from myself and with working with a ton of clients is once you know the amount, what you do with the money changes.
Welcome to the Student Loan Podcast.
Here, you'll find practical advice on tackling student loan debt, paying down your higher education expenses,
and inspiring stories about paying off student loans. We're your hosts, Daphne Vanessa
and Shamil Rodriguez.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Student Loan Podcast by visiting the Student Loan Podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is not professional advice, and we speak from our own personal views and opinions.
The Student Loan Podcast is brought to you by Start New, where you can serve your community and get rewarded with tuition and student loan payments. To check out if Start New is on your campus, visit startnew.com. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Student Loan Podcast. Today, we have Miss Alli from Financially Focused, and we are so excited. She has amazing experience, expertise, some beautiful stories to share with you to help you on your student loan journey. So with that, Alli, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for inviting me to the show. I'm very excited to be here and talk all about my experience and things I can do to help other people. Like you said, my company is financially focused. My goal is to really just make money easy, fun, more conversational, less taboo, and just help people pay off debt, save, spend, do all the things they want, still get your Starbucks and take trips. I live in South Carolina and I have a 15-month-old, which is crazy. He's wild. So fingers crossed no one hears him in any background of this podcast. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and yeah, let's get started.
Yes. So tell us about your school journey. Where did you go to school? What major did you pick? Did you end up, how did you end up paying for school? Tell us a little bit about that journey to give our audience some context.
Yeah. So I am from New York originally. That's where I was born and raised. I went to the University of South Carolina, and my undergrad degree, I had 2 majors and 2 minors. International business and global supply chain, and Chinese and Spanish were my minors. I got a ton of scholarship out of high school to go there, which thankfully covers a lot of my tuition. Academic scholarship, I'm not athletic, so we'll just make sure it's clear that I was not playing any sports. Not playing any sports. Academic scholarship, so that, and then I worked when I was in school for our study abroad office, plus tutored while I was in school, and then my parents helped as well. So between the combination, I personally didn't have student loans, and then I got my MBA also from the University of South Carolina, MBA in finance, and that actually my employer paid for. So I got employer reimbursed tuition. Well, I had to pay it, and then they reimbursed, and I negotiated the amount because they ended up paying more than what they claim they pay. So you can also do that for higher education. So that's how I got my MBA paid. And then, as you both know, my story continues from there of then marrying into debt. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's a huge, before we get into marrying into debt, because that's a whole thing. How did you negotiate your employer paying more for your MBA? That's a really neat tip.
Great question. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm sure a lot of people are curious too.
Yeah. So, a lot of employers have, well, not all, but a lot have, secondary like education or higher education reimbursement. My boss at the time, I told him I wanted to get my MBA, but I didn't really want to pay for it. It's expensive. And I was, working full time and going and getting, pretty much a full-time MBA at night. I worked 8 to 5 and then had school 6 to 9. So it was practically another job, getting my MBA. So my boss at the time, I knew what school I went to South Carolina, but I was living upstate South Carolina. So it was one of their satellite campuses. So I went there for my MBA and negotiate. Like I kind of put together different schools. I applied to a few, and based on my area, they didn't approve online school, like fully online schools. They didn't consider like not a real MBA. I know they are, but they wanted you to go to like quote unquote, an in-person school.
Yeah.
That's what they would approve. So based on the in-person schools in my area, these were the different prices, and kind of negotiated it as, I guess, part of my compensation to an extent. It doesn't hurt, right, to ask and, put together what options you have, the total cost, based on when you want to get it done. Of course, I got it done in a little less than 2 years. Of course, you can extend it and, pay less per year. So you can negotiate timeframes of how long it will take you. It can be part of, your compensation package. But yeah, I just had a lot of discussions how to get it approved by a few different levels. But yeah, it was very helpful.
And talk to us about that approval process, just because we do like to get into the details so that people can implement, like based on listening. Yeah. Were you like getting your manager's approval first and then speaking to their manager, or did you have to go to HR? Like, how did you navigate?
Yeah. So first I went to HR to just get like the current policy, right? Like what they approve, how much, what qualifies, because it has to be related. For my company, it had to be related, obviously, or somewhat related to your job. Like I couldn't get like a master's in like
fashion,
fine arts or something. Yeah. So based on my undergrad degree and then, my job, finance and stuff made sense. And so they were fine, with the degree. So first making sure what you want to do even potentially qualifies before you're like, give me more money, to make sure it's something that works. So first I got like, just from HR, what is currently covered, the amount per, like, is it per year? Is it total? Like really just figure out the current details, which is what I did first. Then I kind of started researching schools near me based on, their school requirements. Like I said, it had to be an in-person program. It couldn't be just like an all online thing, it had to be related. So I started doing my research and, got I think I did 3 different school options near me. One was Clemson, which I was never going to go to because that was our rival. So I mean,
I knew. I was like, whoa.
No.
Oh no,
that was never, going to happen. But pretty much put that together and then went to my boss with, a proposal of like, this is what I want to do. This is what's covered, but I'd like this much cover. This is why. And of course, you have to go with a reason instead of just being like, I want you to pay for school. It's like based on what I'm doing at work and like my next steps at the company. This will, of course, benefit me as a person, but also benefits the company. And you can kind of negotiate it from there. And once he said he was okay with it, then we took it, to the next level of proposing it to HR, and also his boss had to approve it. They just need to fit it in their budget. It's a whole budget issue, but I went to my boss next, and then we, I knew if he was okay with it, I had better chances, passing it down the line from there. So yeah.
Quick question on that. So when it came to deciding on the degree that you wanted, do you think that it impacted you at all to say like, well, what if you wanted like an art history degree and you're like, no, it's just not going to fit in the box of what we need? Like, did that impact you at all or no?
For me, no. I mean, finance is what I wanted to do anyway. Okay. Like I said, my undergrad was supply chain and international business. So I feel like from a business standpoint, finance made the most sense from like a master's. I personally didn't want to do like art history. I think if I did, I'd have to pay for it, and you kind of just have to accept like, if it is what you want to do, like that's great. You can probably find scholarships to other things, but like your employer might not, want to pay for your like art history,
Yeah, like we're not poo-pooing on all art history majors out there. We're just
guys,
go do it. Go get it. But your employer might not support paying it.
There you go. Thank you, Alli.
So interesting. So yeah, let's pivot into your inheritance. And when I say inheritance, I don't mean more money, but negative. Let's talk about your negative inheritance.
Yes. I wish it was the opposite way. Like that would have been I don't know if it would have been a good story for this podcast, but it would be a really good story for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then we fast forward. And so I met my now husband in 2015 and we got married in 2019. So during that time, of course, a lot of money discussions happened and conversations because I was involved, personal finance was important to me at that point. Even when we started dating, I was trying to pay off my new car I bought as a recent college grad, because that's what, every new college grad probably, does. It's like, I graduated, I got a paycheck, let's buy a car. Anyway, I ended up marrying into, total is $154,000 of debt. But over 100 of that was student loans. There was a truck and a credit card involved in that as well. So mostly student loans. So yeah, I inherited negative dollars. So total debt was 154,000. Student loans was probably like 115, 120 of that. Like I said, the rest I had a truck payment and then a credit card, which the credit card was around 12,000, and then the truck was whatever the rest was, around like 20 something. So yeah, like a low six figures, around like 115, 120, but still not fun to pay.
How did you feel about that?
Oh my gosh, I cried. I mean, that was like initial reaction I think anyone would have. I mean, or most people would probably have. I worked so hard I became debt free at 25, like my car, like everything, car, anything. And so I was really focused on saving and for myself. And I saved $17,000 before I was engaged for my wedding. And cause I knew I had to pay for my wedding, and cause my parents were like, we helped with college, you're on your own, we can't do that too. So, we paid for our wedding. And, I was like, so focused on all that and making such progress. And then you're like, okay, we're backwards. But, my whole philosophy from the beginning was with money conversations was not that I didn't care how much debt, because obviously you care, but it was more like, can we get on the same page, right? Like, can we cohesively form some kind of plan together? Because I can pay off debt. Like I knew I could. I knew that there's a way to do that. There's actionable steps to pay off debt. But if he was like, I never care about ever paying it off, I never want to save, I'm just going to spend what I want, pay minimums forever, that to me was a bigger red flag than like six figures of debt for me. I mean, everyone's different, but the amount, it sucks, but I knew we could work on that together and pay off, as long as we kind of could get on the same page with our finances. That was way more important. So it wasn't ideal. I obviously was very, upset or frustrated, like, I didn't do this and I have to, not fully poor me, but like I didn't get myself into the situation and I have to pay it. But I knew we could, and that's how we are now.
How did you go about that conversation? Like, just, you said that was the more challenging part. How do you have that conversation when you're not on the same page about money?
Yeah, I mean, like I told you both earlier, I talked about money really early in our relationship, but that's just because I'm weird and like to talk about finances. Most people don't. So it was probably like, one of our first few dates, like 4 or 5, that like it came
Oh,
up.
nice. Okay. That I was curious. You answered a question that I had, which was, when did the, was it before engagement? Because some people, good. Okay.
Very early. And like, people are probably listening to this, like rolling their eyes, like she's so weird. But, like I told you, it wasn't the amount that I cared about. It was like, hey, if I'm dating to like pursue potential marriage or see if this is going to last, then I need to know, like, is this something that we can eventually get on the same page? Not saying we have to be on the same page today. I mean, that's not realistic, but is this something where we can, like, I see us like being able to kind of come together? Because, money is tough, and, everyone has their own money path, and trying to combine finances, which we did, is like a whole other conversation. But I wanted to just kind of know what I'm saying. So we talked about, like I said, probably date 4 or 5, not necessarily like how much debt do you have. That still came when we were dating. I knew all that, I knew it before. But just like habits, what do you like to spend money on, or what are you, I'm saving for this, what are you, just like, I feel like people make money so like rigid and like structured, and like it can just be a conversation when you're like out, like it doesn't
totally
have to
agree.
It doesn't have to be this like, so please tell me 3 things, like, I don't know why people in their head like get that view of finances, but it can just be like, oh, I'm saving for a new car. Like, is there anything you're saving for? Like, what do you like to spend money on? Or like, debt is awkward to talk about, but like, it's important to know, if that's the first thing you're going to spend the rest of your life with, like, hey, like, what am I
we should
getting
talk about this thing that we're going to carry for a long time. Maybe.
So funny.
Right,
I have the same problem. I have to shut up about money pretty frequently because my habit is just because I love personal finance. I just love that space. My habit is just to be like, so what are you investing in? But most people think that's weird. So I just usually quiet and just thinking about numbers in my head. And
But you guys aren't alone on that because it is like such a faux pas, like it's poo-pooed on the idea of like, you can't talk about it. And we've had guests on the podcast before talk about like, that should not be the case, right? People are willing to talk about their sex lives and other personal matters like it's nobody's business. But when it comes to money, they're like clam up. And it's like, wait a minute, like, should we like actually talk about this? Because it's going to impact how you can buy a home, whether, you can do X, Y, and Z, like it's just going to impact your life. It's something that's a part of your everyday. So why don't we talk about it? And so I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum where I feel like I'm the guy who's always like trying to like poke at the cultural references. It's like, who taught you that we're not supposed to talk about it? So I'm that guy.
You're taking that perspective of it, trying to get to like the root, the real deep stuff. And I'm just like, let's talk about it.
This is my plan.
When we were, oh gosh, I can talk about that stuff too. When we were, when it came up, debt came up, he thought he was like, I think I have around $100,000 of debt. And so I was like, okay, he was just paying minimum. So he didn't really ever check accounts. He was on, most of his federal student loans were income based. So he was really paying like nothing. Like some of them went up, since he went to school. They didn't go down at all because it was like
compounding interest.
Exactly. So he was just paying minimums and everything, credit card minimum, everything was just, I'm just paying the minimum they make me pay. And so he's like, I think I have around 100,000. So I was like, okay, it sucks, but fine. When we had our first money audit date, our only budget meeting we've ever had in our entire relationship, we've had one, and it was that one. And we went through all the accounts and I'm like, taking inventory, right? Like I'm like writing down the accounts, the interest rate,
oh man,
like writing it all out. Just to know, like at this point we were engaged, so I wasn't a weirdo. Like we were engaged at this point.
I love it. This is great.
But going through it all, we totaled it, and it was 154, and he was shocked, and I was shocked because he didn't know. I mean, it wasn't like he was hiding; he genuinely didn't know because he was just autopilot, paying minimums, never actually checking anything. And so I was like, okay, well, that's not exactly 100. It's a little more than 100. But I can work with it. Like, I was upset gave myself a day to like be annoyed. And then I was like, okay, well, I can sit here and like sulk about it, but that's not going to pay it off. Right. So, but there's so many people I think that don't know, and you guys probably see it on the podcast too, that don't even know the total amount because it's just like an autopilot. They tell me to pay this amount, so I pay it, and I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to check, because people are scared to like really total it up and know like the true amount of what they're paying. And that's kind of like what we experienced because it wasn't the amount he thought, but it's okay. We dealt with
it. Sounds like you're still getting over it, Alli.
A little bit, right? I'm like,
a little.
Y'all see it probably all the time. Is just like the income based is, it is. There's a purpose for it, right? Like I get it, but it's just crazy. They just don't tell you the fact that like you're making not even enough to cover it. It's just, it's just so wild how many people don't know that you're like, when I work with people, or you guys probably see it too, it's like, wait, my balance went up but I've been making payments for 5 years. And you're like, yeah, because of the interest rates and different types of how your interest is applied and all the other stuff. But it's just wild how, because he was paying it for a while. It's not like he just graduated. It was years of paying it, and it wasn't going anywhere.
No. And I'd love to get into the makeup of loans, but want to just give a quick note about what are your thoughts on the servicers and the lender's responsibility to let borrowers know every payment, you're paying the minimum payment, but you're below your monthly accumulated interest by X dollars, this will compound into your total principal balance.
Yeah.
That's a communication I think that's just missing. And sorry to infuse the policy, but I know so many people who have your husband's story, right? Which is that, but I was paying the minimum payments. How did this go up? Why is this the case? I thought I was doing the right thing. And, yes, it's buried in the MPN paperwork somewhere, but is that your bedtime reading at night? Likely not. So
it's not my daytime reading either. So
I mean, what like 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds like realistically is, or 17-year-old when you're signing it or whatever, is reading any of that. I mean, yeah, I think of course communication needs to be like, it should be like a thing. But I mean, if you think about how many classes were required right in college that like were so useless, like no offense to those professors that teach them, but like there were so many, required things that like I don't even use or know or anything. Like you could take, it's even if it's like a seminar, it's not a class, right? But it's required to graduate or required your freshman year
class. Like we
like
should
freshman year and senior
sure.
Like you should take it twice because you probably don't remember it, right? Like you don't know, but like it should be like a, there's orientation for college that you have to attend when you go and like all the initial stuff. Even if you just start with like, if you took out student loans or you're planning on taking out student loans, it's required for you to like take this. I mean, even if you don't, like I said, the only reason I say not to make it a class is because most 17, 18-year-olds might not show up to every class. If you like kind of like make it like a, let's be real, not everyone does. So if you like make it, like a seminar or something where it's like required, like they make you sign in when you go and make you sign in when you leave or whatever, like at least to go over, like this, have someone walk through with them, like this is what you took out, for your freshman year, but like, because some student loans start accruing, right away. Some wait, depending on, just depends on the type of loan. So showing them like this is what's happening, and then showing them again senior year, like I said, like it should be another requirement to graduate. But I think the school, like it has to be a requirement.
Totally agree. So, but let's get into the makeup of your student loan inheritance.
The fun stuff.
I love it. So I love the way you're phrasing that.
My inheritance. I really just wish it was the other way. Imagine like inheriting $154,000 at
Much
25
better.
or whatever. Like,
that would be amazing.
That's a conversation for another. But that's like we have a 15-month-old, and like we have 3 different accounts for him, and like he'll be set. And I'm like, listen, he has more money than we do.
I know.
Like if he just like lets it go, because we have all the different accounts. But anyway, so we had a mix of private. I have it pulled up actually. So we had 1, 2, 3 different private loan companies. And then federal student loans, some subsidized, some non-subsidized. So we had all of it. The highest interest rate was 12%, and the lowest was 3.4%. Obviously, the 12% was a private, loan. He also transferred schools. So, between all of that, you take out more loans, to continue the process. So there's a lot of like moving parts. I won't spend too much time on like his part of it, but I mean, we've paid off, like I said, I told you all earlier, like I have talked to every single one of these companies. I have made, I was the one making the payments. I was the one managing our finances. So although technically my name wasn't on any of them, I was the one that on a day-to-day basis was like analyzing them, figuring out which way we're going to pay them off, moving around like which one are we going to pay off next based on interest rate and balance, and keeping track of it and having all my spreadsheets. That's what I have up right now. It's one of my old spreadsheets. So I was the one like doing it and learning and, figuring out the steps to actually like get them paid, since obviously the minimums were not
No, no,
cutting
no.
it. Not
No.
cutting it.
And so you did snowball, avalanche, a combination.
Yeah, mostly avalanche. So we paid,
Okay.
I mean, just because some of the interest rates, as I told you, are extremely
12% is
high.
huge.
So, I mean, the amount of interest paid on, there was like a 12%, 11.25, 9.88, 9.75, 9.75. Like we have a lot of, you have the 5 companies, but within that, it's like Nelnet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always my favorite. They're like, which
Yeah.
loan are you talking about? And you're like, the loan? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
There's 17 loans here. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I have, it's 5 things, but then it's like, all broken out into like each one. So mostly avalanche. There were a few times where like I would just skip, if there was like 2 interest rates close and one balance I knew we could pay off in like 2 months or something, I would just skip to that one, pay it off, and then go back. So, but I'd say if I had to choose a method, it was definitely more avalanche.
So, which is paying for the audiences to refresh your memory. The avalanche method is when you choose to pay by interest rate. So you take the highest interest rate first and you pay it down. And over the long run, you save more money, right? Because you're paying less interest. And if you want to deep dive on avalanche, I think episode 6, Chauncey Maddox goes into that.
Yeah,
good memory. And a quick question on how did you guys break down the responsibility of paying what, because he obviously brought in the student loan debt, and you guys are married now, so you guys are doing it together, and you took the lead, and you're like, look, I got this. But how did you guys decide, like, all right, even though I'm going to take the lead on this, like it's still mine or whatever, like how did that the division of the income to go towards the debt? How'd you guys work that out?
Yeah, so we combined finances when we were married. We didn't combine it. We started budgeting. I moved in a few months after we got engaged. We didn't live together before. We both like our own space, and like it was just worked out for us. We were like, it's the last time to live alone. We'll come together, when we're engaged. But when we got engaged, we started budgeting together because now we had shared expenses, but no accounts were combined. And then when we got married is when we like put everything together. We have joint accounts, and everything was combined. So I like, as you all know, personal finance. He doesn't really care about it. Like he's like, just tell me what to do, whatever. Like doesn't really want to sit there and look at spreadsheets. Like I said, we've had one budget meeting ever, and it was December 2018, our first and last one. I've never had to sit down about it again. We just keep it very conversational. Like I just check in. I'm the one that manages everything. It's kind of like figure out, do you both want to be involved, or just one person, on the day-to-day, or just one person? And it goes back to like what you're good at and what you enjoy. Like I can't fix anything. Like if something is broken, I'm not handy. Like he can build stuff. He does like electric type stuff too. Like he can do all the stuff, and I don't. So like, you just get over your pride or issues, like figure out just stick to what you're good at or what you like. Like he doesn't like it, I do. Simple solution. Like just because he isn't in it on a day-to-day basis doesn't mean he doesn't care. It just means that like it's something I enjoy doing. It's easy for me to do. It just kind of flows. But if both of you want to do it, then you have to figure out, obviously, who's going to pay bills. But like I pay all our bills. I do our savings transfers, and then I'm just like, hey, we have this in savings, and he's like, cool.
That's so funny.
So yeah, that's what works for us at least. But back to the income thing. I mean, I never viewed it, and he knew from the beginning. I never held it over him. Like I've never once said like, you did this or this is yours. It's always been ours. And if you are gonna marry in and accept that, like you have to accept it wholeheartedly and just like let it go. Like you can't use that over someone. Like it's not fair. It's not fair. And if you're on other, you can't hold that like grudge forever. Like if you know what you're getting yourself into and you're going in like all in. And I mean, my thoughts are, you're in a marriage, it's a partnership. So like, if you keep bringing up like you did, you brought in this and you caused this and I didn't, then like that, that's other issues you need to obviously like talk about. But I never once ever have said, I'm not going to use quote unquote my money to pay for it. It was like when our finances are combined, our incomes are combined, we're just going to allocate, based on our combined income, it's going to bills, savings, debt. Like it's just a joint thing. It's not, only your income pays for student loans. It's like, no, we're in this together.
No, and thank you for elaborating on that, because I feel like when I hear this topic come up, that's where some people go, right? Like they really go up in that direction. And I've heard people, and I think it's a good segue to this next question to follow up. Sometimes people will say like, I'm not going to marry someone who has student loan debt or any debt, right? Or they have to have a better credit score than I do. Like you just start hearing these like really, really specific metrics for like, everything else may be met, but no, not this area. So like, what do you I guess say to those people that have that mindset or the mentality to say like, no, I'm not gonna marry somebody who has student loan debt?
And if that's what they want to do, like that's fine. But like you have to let that person know from the beginning. Like that's one of your like if that was me and I said I would never marry someone with no debt, like I would ask that on date one, because like might as well just like if you know there's no way you would ever be with someone because of that, then like don't waste their time and don't waste your time. Just like ask. It's like saying I don't want to go into a marriage with someone who already has kids or something, right? Like I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but if that's genuinely one of your like, no, like I refuse to budge on this, then like don't waste that person's time or your time. Like just literally ask it straight up if that's a a definite like deal breaker. But I think if you do and you're willing to accept it, like I said, you have to fully accept it. Like you can't half accept it or use it in an argument or like ever go back and hold that against someone, because you knew what you were getting yourself into. Or if you want to know, just ask like before you're married. Like if you can, like have those discussions before. And then if you're going to be married and be a team, like be a team, or at least be honest with the person, like, hey, I won't let any of my income go to your debt. Like at least say that before, so that person can then decide, okay, I'm okay with that, or I'm not okay with that. I want to be with someone who, will come together and we can like do this as a team. But I just think you have to be honest with, what you want and what you're willing to accept. I knew what I was getting myself into. Like I said, I've never once said, oh, this is yours. It was ours from the second we got married, and now we can save, and that's also ours. And like it just kind of is an us thing, and that's something that I wanted in my marriage, was it just to be like completely combined.
Nice.
So good.
No, I was going to ask about how this has been some really good content, but I'd love to spend just some time on like how you paid off it's a lot of money. Like it's not like you paid off, like the car is a lot, but 6-figure student loan debt, like that's an Aston Martin. So
good way to put it. Guys.
Could have inherited an Aston Martin, but instead.
Wow, Daphne, don't make it.
You're just making me feel really great today.
Just from time to time, salt, lime in the wound. No
Yeah. Well, so just to like set the backstory of it, is I always say like we don't make 6 figures as individuals, but we hit 6 figures combined. I don't share like our exact salaries, but just because a lot of people are like, oh, you must make like 500,000 or 600,000 or $1 million, and I'm like, no, we like hit 6 figures as combined, but not separately, just so that I just don't want anyone to be like, oh, well, yeah, it's so easy when you make a ton of money. Like, yeah, it would be. I would have paid it off a lot faster.
Yeah,
I made $500,000, but I don't, or anywhere close to that. So it took like obviously, as everyone's here, we're to budget, really figuring out based on our expenses, how much can we throw to debt each month, but also still save, because I wasn't one of those people who wasn't trying to save and do stuff while paying off debt. I'm not a deprivation-based approach person. We still had our date night every Sunday, and still kept the things that were important. Of course, like, we can't go out and just like spend $1,000 on random stuff when we were, trying to pay it off. But we still, we were, like I said, we weren't like eating beans and rice for every meal for multiple years. So pretty much, of course, like our salaries went to it. One thing we did was wedding money, gifts we got from our wedding. I we put to debt, which probably a lot of people spend.
Very good idea.
That's a good one.
Put
Yeah.
that to debt. Not all of it, but what I do with any extra money is, I still do this now. I just allocate percentages before I know the amount, because what I find from myself and with working with a ton of clients is once you know the amount, what you do with the money changes.
Well
so
said. No, I have to like, hold on, Alli. I have to say that I agree personally and with others as well. Like, can you repeat that one more time? Because that might be the intro to this podcast episode.
I wish I even remember what I said now. Saying if you get extra money, once you know the amount, what you do with it usually changes, or what you planned on doing with it usually changes. So if you think, if you're like, oh, I'm going to put all of this to debt, and you're thinking, oh, I'll probably get like $500, $1,000. If you get $5,000, you're like, well, I actually needed a new couch and I wanted to go on this trip. So now that I got more than I thought, it's not going to go to debt anymore. So what I do, and what I have all my clients do, is like, you have to set the percentages before you know the amount. And then once you know the amount, you just apply the percentages, and whatever it is. Like, you don't get to then go back and, re-spend it all. So that's what we did with our wedding money, split between debt, savings, and spending, which is the categories I always recommend. I think debt was like 60% of it went to debt, maybe 30% to savings, and 10% spending, so that we could still get some of our wants, but we had big financial goals. And that, to me at the time, was way more important than like the random new stuff that we wanted. So wedding money went to debt, tax refunds, bonuses, pretty much anything extra we could get went to this. So of course we had our salaries, but anything extra, I tutored. I tried walking dogs, so that's a conversation for another time. Then I got bit by a dog. So
Oh wow. Oh no.
Yeah, I have a blog post. But yeah, Joe was like, you cannot walk dogs anymore. And I was like, but I'm trying to make money. He's like, seriously, Alli, enough. So anyway, you can sit there and say like you have your salary, but for me it was like I needed to find extra money, because for what we were trying to do, our salaries weren't gonna, our annual salary isn't gonna cut it. So everything else possible I tried to do to get this gone as quickly as I could.
Amazing. And how long did it take for you to get rid of everything?
Gosh, what year are we in? We're in 2022. Started in 2018, end of 2018. So 2021. So it took 19. Took a little over 3 years.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
It's very good. Yeah, actually.
Yeah. It like I said, we pretty much anything I could throw. I mean, some months we were able to put like, 6,000 or whatever to there, or 5,000, depending on like random things that came in. And then some months it was like 2,000. It just kind of depended. Like, it fluctuated. It wasn't always consistent. But we also live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, very small house. So we save a lot there. So I think a lot of people like assume like, oh, well, it's easy. Like, I live in South Carolina, which is a low cost state compared to like New York or California. And I also live in a very small house. Like, I think it's 700 square feet. Not a great, just, so there's ways that you can like cut costs. It's not ideal. We don't want to be here forever. We have a toddler in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home and a dog. So, everything is tight, but it allowed us to do so much. And our, electric bill was lower, and all our other bills that came with it were lower because our house is smaller. It's a podcast, but I get my hair cut once a year, literally once a year. I rarely buy new clothes. I don't care about brands or anything. So it's kind of just prioritizing, right? Like, what are you willing to spend money on, and what are things that you can even just temporarily cut for a year, cut for 6 months. It doesn't have to be permanently. Forever. Like, we're not going to live in this house forever. We saved the down payment. We're actively looking, but we've been here. Joe's been in this house for 10 years, 11 years. And I've been in this house since 2018, and most people would not live in this house because it is really tight. But for us, it was like, this allows us to pay off debt, allows us to save, and
it worked.
And it worked. Yeah. It's very old, but it functions. Like our refrigerator doesn't fit in our kitchen, it's in our garage. And our dishwasher, this house didn't have one, so we have a rolling dishwasher you can plug in.
Love it.
So like I said, there's stuff you just sacrifice or figure out how to make work so that you can, pay off debt and do all the other things.
Love it. I'm so grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us. Yeah. And you do this for a living, right? You help people with their finances. Can you tell our audience some of the different offers that you may have and what you have going on to help people get their money right?
Yeah. So I have a completely free course. I've had, I think 500 people so far go through it.
Oh, nice.
It's on my website, like literally costs $0. It takes 1 hour of your time. It's broken into like 2 to 3 minute videos because I know no one wants to focus for an hour. So it's short, but that's the best place to start. And it's literally free. So you have to spend no money. And the feedback's been amazing. So that is in my Instagram and on my website. I also have a course just about like credit, like understanding credit and credit cards, because that's something I didn't struggle with credit cards, but my husband did. So I had to combine that and figure out in credit scores. Like we're buying a house right now, so that was super important to figure out, like, is it going to be just in my name? Is it going to be in both our names? Like based on what we're approved for and interest rates. So have a few self-paced courses, and then I have my group program where I literally walk you through creating a plan from scratch. Pretty much we cover everything from starting with your money audit, creating budget, debt payoff, saving, spending, all of the things. So that is currently how I work with people. And then Instagram has a ton of free content. I'm on Instagram every day. You can see my messy behind the scenes of my hectic life. It's kind of always a disaster over there, but it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Love it. And they can reach you at Instagram at financially focused with an I, right?
Yeah, so spell financially with an I instead of a Y. So it's like Alli at the end. Financially focused on Instagram. My website's financially focused. Pretty much anything is financially focused. If you find it, it's but Instagram, I'm on way too often, let's be real. So that's probably the best way to actually get in touch with me. And then my website has all of everything else you would potentially need.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alli. It's been amazing having you on. Shamil, do you have anything else?
No, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it was fun, and thank you for sharing with us and then with the audience, right? Because we haven't tackled the marrying into money aspect, right? We've had people share their stories of how they work with their spouse to pay off, each of their student loans. But I really, really hope that folks out there that are either considering getting married or dating, like you said, communication in the beginning is so important, right? Get it out of the way. First date, yep. Credit score, no good. Student loans, out,
Or decide if you're willing to wait for the person to fix it before you get married. Because dating, you're not married tomorrow, guys. So just,
No.
I'm not saying this because we've been married forever, but I'm just people need to be a little bit more realistic with their lists about you meet somebody today, if credit is important for you, let them know that from the beginning, and then see if there's actually a spark, maybe you give them a year or 2 or 3, however long it takes them to fix it.
I mean, realistically,
that's my opinion. Sorry.
Not everyone, but most people you meet have some kind of debt these days, right? So or at least like our age, this age group has debt. I mean, like that's just our life, right? So I feel like if your requirement is like no debt, like you're really limiting your pickings, and like I said, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But like to your point, like we started dating in 2015 and got married 2019. So there was a process, and it just wasn't like tomorrow everything needs to be fixed. And it's still a process. We're married a few years and have a kid, and there's always things changing. So find someone that you can grow with and change with, and if they're willing to change, fine. But if your red flag or your deal breaker is debt, just let them know.
Okay. And for more information on today's episode and to figure out how you can connect directly with Alli, if you are driving and unable to write things down, which we don't recommend that you do while you're driving, you can visit the show notes and visit the studentloanpodcast.com/episode 62. That's the studentloanpodcast.com/episode 62.